Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154, where we are getting our first review of the AltProto AMX 30, and that is the premium tier 8 French medium tank that's the subject of the Legend of the Hunter campaign that should be starting today, the release date. So this forms the gameplay end of our review. Now I've done a much more detailed tactical and technical review of this vehicle on my Wix page. I'll put the link below. Hopefully you are catching this video from my Wix page, but if not, it'll be there, and it goes into a lot more detail about the tank. So some of the major pros with this vehicle is good mobility, which allows you to get to the forward hull down positions nice and early in the game. You can take advantage of 11 degrees of gun depression, and the turret facing is also protected by a 240mm thick spaced armor mantlet, which is quite wide. It offers a lot of protection to the face of the turret, and I guess because of the curvature you're ending up with sort of 280 to 290mm of effective armor on that turret face, so it can make it extremely bouncy. Even though on paper the turret looks rubbish with 150mm of armor, but that's why we don't look at stats on paper. One thing that is a little bit disappointing about this vehicle, and this is in spite of having the sniper designation, if you want to get into vehicle roles, it has a base dispersion value of 0.35, which even amongst the tier 8 premium sniper mediums, that is very much up there, and that can lead to a little bit of frustration when playing this vehicle if that base dispersion is not brought down and not brought under control. You'll really struggle to roleplay effectively in this tank. Having said that, if you do connect your shots, you stand a reasonable degree of penetrating. The base penetration value with the armor piercing shells, 232mm, and you can change that up to APCR with 263mm of penetration. So it's not too bad. It holds up. It holds up even in the face of higher tier games. The high explosive shells that gives you a bit more punch, 400 alpha damage there, but penetration on that shell is limited to, I believe, 50mm. Yeah, 50mm. I guess one characteristic of sniping tanks is oftentimes they'll have sort of high penetration but a longer reload. Sometimes they'll go for high DPM, but other characteristics are a little bit off. In the case of AltProto AMX 30, you get the penetration, but it does appear to very much suffer in terms of gun handling, and it appears to suffer as well in terms of aim time. It has one of the longer aim times of the premium tier 8 sniping medium tanks at 2.4 seconds. Whether you'd want to attach a gun laying drive to reduce that, I don't know. I think there's other equipment choices you could make to try to improve the characteristics of this vehicle. But in this battle in Ghost Town, we are doing our best, although the bar at the top indicates the team is not doing all that well. But now we've found a position where we can now really start to play to the strengths of this vehicle, where we're using the hull down, we're using the very strong gun mantlet, and we've basically caught these two tank destroyers completely off guard. The initial contact, they've bounced off either the hull or the turret facing. In that case, the Scorpion G has just put a shot into the into the gun. So after 3 points of contact, 4 points of contact, we've now bounced 2,000 hit points of damage. So this is a good position for us to be, at least ourselves. More broadly, sort of suffering in. My goodness, where are we at now? Yeah, so we've lost. We've got 12 enemy tanks against us. The Scorpion has decided they're going to charge us. We have been able to shut them down, but a little bit too much crossfire there. But let's take a quick look at those results. So for our efforts there, no mastery badges in this particular instance, but we have been able to inflict a reasonable damage bill on the enemy, nearly 2,000 damage inflicted, and bounced nearly 3,400 hit points worth of damage, and that's against the likes of SU-130PM, Rheinmetall Scorpion G, and the M4A1 Revelarice. So that gives you an indication of the bounce potential of AltProto AMX 30 when you can play it from a position that suits the tank, specifically a nice hull down position where you can just roll forward, shoot, roll back. You might bounce something along the way. It wasn't until we started getting rushed and flanked that we were really in trouble there. But I guess when you have such overwhelming kill counts inflicted upon your team, that starts to become somewhat inevitable. Having a look at the profitability there, even though that was quite a significant defeat, we did have battle payments running. Thanks again, VIII Clan. But for that defeat, we still came out 40,000 credits positive there. But let's go and take a look at some good news instead. So onto a map that the snipers of the world would be far more happy to see. We have Prokhorovka. Now it's a bit of a campy map, accept that, but it's also a bit of a campy tank. One thing that's probably revealed itself in the last battle, particularly as we attempted to engage the Skoda T56 there, was it just its dynamic gun handling characteristics are not good. The aim time on the vehicle is quite long, 2.4 seconds. I'm pretty sure we mentioned that. And I'm not 100% convinced that vertical stabilizers are the tool that you should be reaching for with this vehicle, because I just don't think it's really built for brawling. It really is built for ridgeline work. And there's a couple of factors that contribute to that. You have a fairly slow rate of turn on both the hull and the turret. So even though you have quite good forward mobility, you can see how much further ahead of our teammates we've been able to get in taking this position. But I sort of use the anecdote that Jeremy Clarkson, when he's talking about American cars. No, sure, some cars have got are quite cheap, and some even have a bit of power. But of course, all that power is useless when on the first corner you're going to understeer into a tree, and that's what you kind of get with this vehicle. You can't encircle an enemy. You'll drive past it really quickly, but the turning circle that you'll end up taking, the enemy is just far more likely to sort of turn around and get a gun online on you. And even then, your brawling capacity is quite limited by the damage per minute. Your armor layout's very situational. It's really built for hull down play, preferably in a sort of second line arrangement. Now we've struggled a little bit here initially in that we've sort of been poking that ridge, but we've been just taking a lot of fire. I suspect we were outspotted by a charioteer that was here, and for our efforts there, we've sort of been taken fire from a T20 in the mid, from the Progetto, where 32 hit points off a death sentence at the moment, having taken another hit from the T29. And so this is going to require a bit of super cautious gameplay, which realistically, I probably should have just started with that, and then maybe I'd have had a bit less of a stressful finish to this game. But hey, that's World of Tanks. So with the T32 moving up, that gives us a little bit of an opportunity to play as we really want to play in this tank, and that is as a second line sniper, a second line support tank. The others are in front getting spotted, they're attracting all the attention, so we can sort of sit back and try to engage available targets of opportunity. So trying to draw a bead on this T29. That's a little bit hit and miss. Again, we still, the vehicle starts off with a base dispersion of 0.35 meters per 100 meters. We have been able to get down to 0.32 by using improved aiming in conjunction with a Brothers in Arms crew. If I were to strap improved ventilation on, I could get that down to 0.31 as well. But I sort of found this is one of those vehicles where the commander is also the radio man, so the entire burden for improving your view range is just on the commander. I didn't have a 4-skill commander here, so it was very much reliant on equipment to try to improve the view range. So I've gone for coated optics, and that seems to work out all right. It doesn't do me much good when I've got charioteers with binoculars in a bush, as I suspect we had earlier in this game, but it gives you 440 meters of view range with the current crew set up, so I'm happy with that. The only other thing I might suggest for this tank is if your crew is still developing and for whatever reason you've chosen not to improve gun handling, vertical stabilizers, but definitely the essential equipment here is a gun rammer to improve the terrible DPM and the improved aiming to at least give this tank some sort of credential as a sniper. Otherwise you're kind of restricting yourself to medium range engagements, and even then I'm sort of frustrated with the dispersion we're getting out to sort of the limits of our view range in the mid, but I guess that's somewhat to be expected when we are really shooting out to the limits of our view range. But we're finally in a position now where we can somewhat play the vehicle to its strengths as a sniper. Hey, we've got another connection on that T20, happy days. We've done our hit points and damage. Not that that's terribly difficult to do, actually, because you'll notice our hit point pool is only 1,250 hit points. That's now, if you look at all the Tier 8 medium tanks in the game, that's actually the second worst. It's tied second worst with the Bachatillon Barrasque, the worst being the Object 274A at only 1,200 hit points. So a low hit point pool makes the vehicle quite unforgiving of mistakes. So yeah, you need to be quite careful of it. I mean, in this case, we've taken 4 hits, and now we're crossing our fingers and puckering up at 32 hit points left. So a light breeze will send us back to the garage at this point in time. Overall, I mean, we're up against it. Granted, we've got both the same number of tanks, but our team has just eaten a hell of a lot more shells than the enemy. And I guess we're on a map that's notorious for rewarding campy gameplay. So certainly the last thing we want to do is try to push anything at this point in time, because we will likely suffer quite terribly for that transgression. So I guess all we can do is get our optimal position and try to wait it out. We can see the enemy has a decent presence along the 1-2 line, decent presence in the mid, decent presence on the lee side of the hill. I think both teams are doing Prokhorovka well. Actually, but there's been a bit of bold push from the charioteer, and we've been able to capitalise, get a meaningful hit into the side of the turret. Our friendly T-32 has also been able to knock out the enemy T-20, so that's one less enemy vehicle that's going to be playing that ridge in the middle. I've said this before in other videos. A successful Prokhorovka game, it relies on vehicles playing this low side, both low sides, and both elements of the hill. And the vehicles in the low side, they're essentially spotting each other, and the vehicles on the high side are essentially shooting down and creating crossfire into the vehicles on the low side. Quite often they're not actually shooting at each other, but as the enemy vehicles are sort of crawling their way up the hill, we're able to take these opportunities to start engaging them. I suspect there was a bit of blind fire towards my bush there. In hindsight, wish I'd fired at the E75 TS in that instance. I might have kept my teammate alive a little bit longer there. That was nothing malicious there, just a bit of a mistake on my part. So playing the hull down, we know, the E75 TS has been knocked out by our friendly Lease, so they've been able to play the ridge quite well. We can see the enemy T-44-100 has gone to block the cap. So our friendly T-20 has been able to make some gains in the cap circle. Now we're just proceeding to try to knock a few buildings over, get that T-44-100 exposed, and hopefully force it to take some damage. Unfortunately, just a little bit more intervening terrain on that last shot there, and it's been able to knock out our T-20. Now they control the cap circle. For whatever reason, though, they've decided to come off it. So we've elected to go and put a shot into it. Again, using our turret, using our 11 degrees of gun depression, now we're in a much more advantageous position here from which to engage the T-44-100. Reloading, and knocking it out. So we're now at a 2-gun disadvantage, significant hit point disadvantage. Again, our armour serving us well, bouncing the APCR shell off the charioteer and sending it back to the garage as well for our second kill of the game. So only one tank the difference, and the enemy is into the cap circle. And so our EBR Hotchkiss is moving up at this point in time, so I expect they're going to be doing the spotting run, which with our current hit point position, there's probably not too much point putting ourselves in that vulnerable sort of position. You can see it's actually quite a weak vehicle hit point wise that's taking care of the cap, so we're able to knock the Progetto 46 out. It just leaves the Leo and the KV3 nearby, so with it having pulled off the hill, that signals us that, okay, well, let's push forward, let's use the hull down ability of this vehicle, and really try to play successfully to our role. We've got a bit of intervening terrain there. We swing, we miss, but fortunately so does the KV3. That could have been a little bit of a game-ending shot for us. So at the moment, destructible cover between the KV and I. Still got plenty of ammunition left, so let's just keep knocking buildings over. You can see the CS52 Lease is also moving into a flanking position. So either way, one of us is going to end up digging out that KV3. So that's the last of that building dealt with. So we now have a clear shot. We weren't actually spotted for that one. So dialing in, aiming, and back to the garage it goes. That just leaves one tank destroyer left in the game. Last sighted over the far side of the map, so we're going to jump in and create a bit of cap pressure just in case a disaster happens between the Jagdpanther or the CS-52 lease. But the Jagdpanther ends up bringing it home, and that is a win for us. Let's take a look at those results as well. So for our efforts there, folks, we've come away with a level 1 mastery badge. We've also picked up this Spartan epic medal, which you get when you survive a ricochet or a non-penetrating shot when you have 10% of your hit points left, and the condition is you also have to survive the battle. So that was pretty cool to pick that up. I suspect that shot came from the charioteer in the later stages of the battle. Picked up quite a swag of these badges of merit as well. We've got the Bruiser medal for damaging enemy modules or crew members at least 5 times in the course of the battle. We've got the Hand of God for surviving and winning the battle, having received damage from at least 4 enemy vehicles. We've got the Duelist medal for destroying 2 enemy vehicles that have caused damage to us in turn. We've got the Fighter medal, which is kind of the poor man's Top Gun medal, having sent 4 enemy vehicles packing. And of course the Fire for Effect medal for doing at least 8 hit points in damage. Now, with only 1,250 hit points in the pool, that's not terribly difficult to do. 4 to 5 penetrating hits. That's all the AltProto AMX 30 asks of you. In this case, we've been able to do over 3,400 hit points worth of damage, so we were quite happy with that, and that contributed very much to this mastery level score. Now, while we placed top on experience for the team, our teammates weren't too far behind. The T-77 and the CS-52 both playing very nicely to their roles through the course of this battle. Special mention to the enemy T-44-100, who actually came top on damage overall across both teams, with sending 4 of our lads back to the garage. So very well played by them under some difficult circumstances. Having a look at the detailed report, because everyone wants to see what the detailed report's doing when there's a premium tank going. We've yielded, for our efforts, 65,000 credits. Didn't have any boosters or mission completions running there, so 65,000 credits was the aim of the game. So you consider we had a loss, but we did all right under the circumstances. We made 40,000. There we go. It had level 1 mastery. We made 65,000 credits. So there you go. It's a tank that you do reasonably well in. It'll turn quite a nice profit for you. So there you go, folks. That's the AltProto AMX 30, the new premium tier 8 French medium tank. This is the subject of the current Legend of the Hunt campaign. Again, please check this out on my Wix page. I do a much more detailed tactical and technical overview of the vehicle, and I guess between the gameplay side of the review and the theoretical side of the review, hopefully that'll enable you to form a more informed view on whether this is the tank that you'd like to chase through the marathon, and how hard you'd like to go for it. In the meantime, take care out there.